Hi, this is TW from Data Outfitters, and today I'm going to talk to you about error handling and how I manage errors in a Visual Basic 6 program. So here you can see we have a small, very simple application that has a button called Division by Zero. When we open that up, we see we have some number as an integer, and we try to assign 5 divided by 0 to some number, which is going to create a division by 0 error. So when we run that, obviously we get this error. That's okay, but if we were to go to the program after it's been compiled and get that error, without an error handler, we get this default error message, division by 0, runtime error 11. But the really bad thing is that when I press OK, Windows is going to shut this program down and it's going to go away. And if you're doing some work in a program, you've lost everything and now you've got an unhappy camper. So let's fix that. We're going to go in here to this project, and this button I've already installed my error handling code, so I'm just going to steal that, copy it, and then go to the other button that has no error handling code, and we'll just paste that in there, and then we'll get the code that was there, and we copy it and replace it. So now all we have to do is associate the error handler with this function and this procedure or module. So it's command one click, and form main is our form. We've got that correct. The only other thing we want to do is put a line number in here so that we know what line the error occurred on. So normally you'd have 1 through 15 above this, and let's just pretend that there's a bunch of code here and that this happens to be line 16 that the error is occurring on. So that's all we have to do to make this thing work. So now when I run this and I press this button, I get this message box, and this is a message box from the error handler that's giving me a little more friendly message, and we can customize that. What's cool is the program doesn't go away. It stays there. We've gracefully exited it, and we've also logged that error. So if we go to our errors file, here's the log of that error. So we have error 11 in form main. The function was command one.click. The error description is division by 0. This is the time and date that the error occurred. This is a concatenation of most of the things about the error that the error handler uses, and it will with this information, it can prevent from the same message from being displayed more than once. And if the error occurs too many times because there's in a loop, it will just fall out and gracefully exit. This is a command procedure, and I'll explain that a little bit later. The error occurred on line 16. The error was error exit. This is the actual application name. The message box was displayed. The log was written, and division by 0 was the displayed message. So that's really handy stuff. But let's just say we had a function or a piece of code that had more than one function. So we've got this here, and command 2.click calls on line 45. Let's just imagine that there's 44 lines of code before that. It calls this function here, which is on line 57, which is funcdef, which is exactly the same code that we had in that first button press that I showed you a moment ago. It's a division by 0 error. So when we run this, we get basically the same identical message, but our error log is going to cover the entire stack trace of the error. So here we have this error section of the XML file here that says error 11 occurred in form main and funcdef. And then the next section in line 16 here. In the next section, func call me on line 57 had the same error. And here we get down to command 2.click, error 11 occurred on line 45. So you're able to follow the stack trace of the error and the path that the code took to where the error occurred. It's very helpful for debugging and whatnot. Now you can see here the log was written was false here, and it was false here, but it's true here. So it waited till it got all this information to write the log. But message box displayed was false here and false here, but it was true in this function. So the message box was displayed here and the log was written at the end. It's just information. It's a lot of information. It's very helpful. So let's just say now, for instance, that we want to handle error 11 in the entire project. So when the software opens, this piece of code here, func global errors, is run, and it gathers all of these error actions, and each one of these is an error action, and I'm now pushing it into an array, error action array, and the software or the error handler, when an error occurs, is going to loop through this entire array of error actions and look for one that's appropriate for the error that occurred. So if it finds that error 11 occurred in generic, error module generic, which means any function or any module, and error module is also generic. So if error 11 occurs anywhere in the software, we should get a message that says, this is a global message. So now we're customizing the software to give us a particular message for a particular error, and that's very helpful. Largely, you use this a lot when you get database errors that are always ugly, and -2 billion and something or other, failed to create container. Customers don't understand that, so you put something friendly in there. So anyway, let's go ahead and run this, and when we call this right now, I should get, this is a global message, and I should get the same thing here, because the same error has occurred. And we'll have an error log associated with that, but we're not going to go there at the moment. So that's really cool. But let's just say we've got this piece of software compiled and something changes, and now we have a new error, and we can't recompile and get that software out to the customer. In the situation that I'm thinking of particularly, Microsoft changed the name of a time zone. So everybody in that time zone that was using that time zone, when they opened it up, it created an error. Because it was a piece of medical software under the FDA's direction, it would take us 2 months to do all the paperwork to get a new version out. So what we really needed was some way to fix that error without touching the compiled software. And this gives us that ability, because we have a file here called error actions XML. And the software reads this when it first opens, and it puts these error actions at the very front of that array, so they have greater priority. As soon as it finds one that fits, it's going to use it. So let's just say that we wanted to take and make this special message box. If error 11 occurs in form main under command1.click, we want to say this message came from the XML file. And we may do some other things like exit the function and things that would be helpful to contain this error. So let's just go ahead and save that. Now when I run this, I should get this error message came from the XML file. Now, if I run this one, I won't get that. I will get the global message because it was not specific. It was specific for this particular function. So this gives you an idea of the power of this error handling system that I have, and a lot of things that it can do for you and help you discover what your errors are. And I just don't know how people get along without it. So if you need something like that, give me a call. Thanks. Bye.